Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. I have some books that I'm going to talk about, and I just want to jump right into that today. So this first book I have seen going around, but I first added it to my list because of Scott over at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. So make sure to check out his channel. I will link it down below. I read the book Maame by Jessica George. Now, this was an interesting book. This has our main character who has spent all of her life up to this point with her family, taking care of her father, who is very sick. I believe he has Parkinson's. So she is with her father all the time and finally decides that she's gonna move out. She is gonna have her own life. She's gonna go out and get a boyfriend, make friends, travel, do things, because she's been with her father this whole time. She has been taking care of him because her mother is always leaving and in Ghana, and her brother is pretty absent, and so she has been the responsible one, and she's finally going to start living. And so at first in this book, I kind of thought, okay, this is fine. This is a little trite, like, oh yeah, I'm in my 20s and I'm gonna go out and make a name for myself. Like, that's fine. But this ended up being really beautiful, a discussion of grief, a discussion of family dynamics, and working through some of those expectations that you felt were there for your life and trying to work through what you want out of life. I thought that there were some really beautiful things about this book. So honestly, it ended up being a 5-star read for me, where at the beginning I wasn't too sure. I was like, okay, yeah, this is fine. And then it ended up being really meaningful, and meaningful in a way that I feel like it actually was something that caused me to look at my own life, to think about ways that I can approach things in a different way. And I think that's, that's the goal there. When you read a book like this, a fiction book that can change you, and I think that this was that. It was really, really well done. So I was surprised. Like, this book surprised me how much I liked it, but I do recommend it. I thought it was just really just kind of poignant and beautiful. There were so many different things that you could focus on this. Topics of culture, mental health, grief, death, sickness. There's so many things that can go into this, dating, relationships, anything. But I just feel like because there are so many things, and the way that it was handled was really well done, I think anyone could probably find something that they connect to and find meaningful in this book. So this next book was a recommendation from Melinda over at A Web of Stories. So I will make sure to link her channel down below. And I read the book Disability Visibility, First Person Stories from the 21st Century by Alice Wong. And it was compiled by her. And what this was is a collection of people's stories, living with disabilities, their varied experiences, people from all different walks of life, situations, and overall, I thought this was really good. It gave me a lot of things to think about, a lot of things I wasn't aware of. I was very interested to kind of see some of these accommodations and things that could be done to really help include more people, and I thought that there was a lot of good stuff. Some of the things that I found particularly interesting was the discussion of inclusive fashion. That was very interesting. There was some talk about community building within disabled communities, and I thought that that was really interesting. There were a lot of aspects that I thought were really well done. As it is one of those compilations, and so some of the essays were much stronger than others, and some of them were not written specifically for this book, but were maybe a eulogy at a funeral or something else. And so some of it, just by the nature of how this book was, felt slightly disjointed at parts, but subject matter wise, super interesting. And I think anyone could get something out of this. I think it was just maybe who was writing and for what, that occasionally I would be taken out of it thinking, am I reading a personal essay or is this a commercial for your clothing brand? Or, you know, like there were just some things that were a little bit interesting just based on who was writing and why. But overall, very interesting to talk about how we treat people with disabilities, what they want from society, what they need to help them live their best lives. So this next book was a recommendation from the channel Bookish, so I will make sure to link that in the description below. And I read The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North. Now, this is a bit of a different one. It's a little bit sci-fi, but I don't feel like it super fits into that category. It can kind of be fantasy, time travel, all sorts of things. So we have our main character, and Harry August, he lives his normal life, makes it through the end, dies, and starts back over being born into the exact same life. And he's living his same life over and over again. And so he finds out that there is actually a community of people who have this same problem where they keep living the same life over and over again, and they work together to take care of each other. But they have a few rules about what is acceptable to change and to do within your timeline. At a certain point, Harry is told by a young girl showing up at his deathbed that the world is ending. So the world is of course going to end, but it's ending faster than it should. And what Harry finds out is that he thinks it has to do with this man that he's met who also lives his lives over and over again, but has different ideas about what is acceptable to change and what we should be doing with this time. And I feel like it dealt with some really interesting kind of philosophical debates of what do you do with the time you have? Why is life meaningful? What do we get out of it? I think that there was a lot of that. And I think the core of this book was really Harry, and I want to say his name was Victor, but their back and forth. They're kind of like, are they friends? Are they enemies? What is going on? But they're kind of back and forth, their different ideas, and that push and pull throughout the lives. I thought that that was the kind of the heart of the book and was really interesting. I feel like it would show up well in a movie. And overall, I think this book was really well done and pretty interesting. Now, here's my complaint time, because I have to throw in a complaint. I really liked it, but I read this at the wrong time. So I had visitors and I had to, you know, read a chapter and then go out, do some stuff, be with family, go do things. Anyways, this book needs you to sit down and read it, and then you'll find it interesting and engaging. And the times that I had to sit down and read it, I found it interesting and engaging. But because my reading was a little disjointed, it took me ages to get through this book, because with the nature of the book, he goes back and lives his lives over and over again. So it is not told in a super linear fashion, right? It's one time in my third life, this and this and this happened. And then the next chapter is one time in my 10th life, this and this. And it's bouncing around talking about his 15 lives, the first 15 lives of Harry August. It's in the title. And I think that worked well because you're getting a bigger picture as the book goes on, and it was a good device for the author. But as a reader who did not have the time to sit there and just, you know, read through the whole book, I would get a little bored or a little distracted and have a hard time going back to it. So it was my personal problem with the book, nothing against this book. I thought it was really well done. I really liked it. I just think that be aware that it does have that bouncing through times. So you can read a chapter and have kind of, if you're not focused, you forgot what was going on earlier. So you're not gonna really feel like, I need to get to the end. And so I like, when I'm reading a book, to feel a little more urgency, and I think this was just the fault of the timing in which I read this. But overall, it was a really well done book. So I do recommend it. I just think put some time to really be reading this. Now, I picked up the book, My Own Words, by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There's also Mary Hartnett and Wendy W. Williams, who worked on this book. Now, I thought this was great. I really like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I thought, hearing about her was really great. I highly recommend if you pick this book up, it will be that you do it on audiobook. I think you just need to know what you're getting into, and I didn't because this was tagged as, a biography memoir. Now, it wasn't, so it just didn't really fit into those boxes for me. So if it was a biography, I would have hoped to have maybe like a critical look into her life and a lot of details and kind of following her story. If it was a memoir, I would have wanted more personal reflections on what it all means and those kinds of things. Instead, this was, I feel like, what Ruth Bader Ginsburg wanted you to know. Like, this is her information she wanted to impart upon the public. And mainly, it was little biographical sections and some context, and then her speeches. So if you do this on audiobook, you can listen to the original speeches that she gave, her dissents, her opinions. You can get that, which I think is super neat. And it was great to kind of learn what she found important and what she felt like she needed to put together in this book so that we would remember, and some of her important decisions, and a look into what the Supreme Court is like in the United States. I think that this is super well done. So you are mostly getting her thoughts and her opinions that she felt like she wanted you to know. And so I think this was really worth a listen. Honestly, listen to it, because at some points I found her delivery to be very powerful, and I really thought it was well done. I just think that my expectations were a little different than what the book ended up being. So I really enjoyed this book, and I do recommend it. So overall, I have read some really good books this past week. So if you have read any of these books and have thoughts on them, let me know what you thought. Let me know if you agree with what I said or disagree. I am really good with, please tell me if you hated these books. I would really love to know what you think. And I should be back in another week. I'm reading a couple books right now that I have thoughts on and I'm really excited about. So I can't wait to come back and talk about those. And so I will see you all on the next one.